Hello, my name's Sibéal and I am the author of the Witch Wars and Bad Mermaids series of books. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about my favourite thing to do in creative writing, and that is world building. Now, some of you might know what world building is. World building is very much what it sounds like. It's creating a world for your characters, and I love doing it. So in Witch Wars we have Sinkville, which is a world that you get to by going down the sink pipes, and that's where all the witches live, and there's all different parts of the city, the coves, the mysterious coves, Pearl Peak where the evil witches live. So there's all sorts of places, and I love creating it. And I absolutely loved creating the world for Bad Mermaids. So in book 1, we go to a place called the Hidden Lagoon, which is here, which is in the Pacific Ocean. And to get to the Hidden Lagoon, you have to swim out really, really far past a rock that says no legs beyond this point. And there is a tiny shell, and when you open it up, there's these little pearly buttons inside. You type in the code to the Hidden Lagoon, and if you get it right, all the rocks around you begin to split open, and you see this very cool world. And there's all different cities that make up the Hidden Lagoon. But the Hidden Lagoon, our main characters here, Beatty, Mimi and Zelda, they all come from the Hidden Lagoon. But they don't realise at first that the Hidden Lagoon is not the only mermaid place in the world, but actually mermaids live all over the world in every ocean and bit of water that there is. So as the books go on, we learn about, in book 2, we learn about a place called the Crocodile Kingdom, and the Crocodile Kingdom has the Chomp subway. So this is the Chomp subway, and you can see all the different places in the Crocodile Kingdom. We have Saltmont and Emerald Cove, Jellyhood, Nibble Hollow, Lava, which is inside an underwater volcano. And they also discover the mermaid map of the world. And these here in black, you can see, are all the different mermaid kingdoms around the world. So we've got Pinkley Lagoon in the Mediterranean. If you've ever swam in the sea in the Mediterranean, you might have seen some Pinkley Lagoon mermaids. And they have dolphin tails, which is quite cool. Octopoly, there's lots of mermaids there that have octopus tails. And all sorts of places. Fortress Bay, which we visit quite a lot because in the books, Beatty, Mimi and Zelda befriend a mermaid called Mary Pebble. And Mary Pebble here is a spy mermaid in Fortress Bay. There's also one of my favourite places, Frostopia, down by Antarctica. And we visit that one in the 3rd book, Bad Mermaids on Thin Ice. And I believe that there is a map in here of Frostopia. And Frostopia was really fun to create because, oh, where's the map? See if we can find it. Oh, that's Pinkley Lagoon. All the mermaids lounge on lilos, and if a human comes, then they sound the alarm and a lot of dolphins float up to the surface. So all the humans think, oh, dolphins, and they get distracted so the mermaids can get away in time. So let me just find this map here for you. There's lots of great illustrations by Jason Cockcroft, who illustrates the books, and he does these incredible illustrations. But this is Frostopia. And you can see it almost looks like a snowflake, and it's split into 4 quarters, and it has a magical transportation system that allows you to go from the north to the south pole. So half of Frostopia exists in the North Pole and the other half in the south. So there's Flurry Falls, Slushville, the Glisten Quarter, Flow. So it's really, really magical place, Frostopia, and one of my favourite of the mermaid cities. And in book 4, which comes out in June, and this one is actually, it hasn't been printed yet, so you're getting a secret look at the cover. And it's just the cover. The contents hasn't yet been printed, but this one is really exciting because they go to a place called Salmon City, and they also discover a loch in Scotland that's believed to be haunted by a mermaid, and they find something hidden there as well. So building up the world in these books has been so much fun. So I wanted to tell you a little bit, if we go back to the Hidden Lagoon, because that's where our 3 main characters live. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Hidden Lagoon with the help of some props. And then I thought it would be fun if we created a new mermaid city to maybe go here, and I'm going to show you a little bit about what you need to do to world build. So if you have a copy of the book, you could even draw your city in the space. There's there, if you want it down here closer to Hammerhead Heights, then you can, or just get a big piece of paper and some pens, and we will get to work. So first of all, we are going to go to the capital of the Hidden Lagoon, and that is Swirly Shell. So I'm going to put on the Swirly Shell hat. There we go. So Swirly Shell is very much what you would imagine a mermaid city to be like. The mermaids wear classic things that mermaids wear. They have shell crowns, shell shoulder pads, lots of cool shell outfits, and the buildings themselves are kind of what you'd imagine a mermaid city to be like. So they have these swirly shell studded buildings, beautiful buildings in old little rock alleyways, and it's the oldest mermaid city in the world, and it's also home to Periwinkle Palace, which is where Zelda and Mimi, 2 of the characters, live. Their parents work for the mermaid queen, Arabella Codd, so they live in this palace. And so Swirly Shell is a really beautiful place to live. So if you live in Swirly Shell, you probably love to wear lots of shells, and you love history and beautiful old buildings. There's also a great bookshop in Swirly Shell called Weedbees, and it's got all their books are made of seaweed, which is really cool. So if we travel now, we're going to leave Swirly Shell and we're going to take the Crystal Tunnel, and we're going to swim south through the Crystal Tunnel, and we will get to Oysterdale. So Oysterdale is very different to Swirly Shell, and I don't know if you can see what the houses are like. They are made, they're sandcastles. So if you live in Oysterdale, you live in a sandcastle, which is really cool. So I'm going to take that off, and we're going to put on a traditional Oysterdale outfit. So the Oysterdale mermaids tend to wear crazy things. You always can spot an Oysterdale mermaid by what they're wearing. And they they tend to wear lots of seaweed. So we have some seaweed to put on here. Let's put on some of the seaweed. And they also like to wear quite crazy hats. So let's see if I can, we've got here a bejeweled octopus hat. So I'm going to put this on. It's quite heavy. Oh, there we go. So this is what the Oysterdale mermaids wear. So Oysterdale is really cool. So if you live in Oysterdale, you probably love living in a big sandcastle house and wearing crazy hats, which is fun. And Oysterdale is also where the clam car was invented. So clam cars are these giant clam shells that you can, they split open, they open up, and you can see one there. There's a clam car that the mermaids swim in. So you get inside and then you can drive around in it, and Beatty, Mimi and Zelda get hold of a clam car, which is really cool. And so when I was writing Bad Mermaids, I realised that a lot of mermaids in stories, they swim everywhere, don't they? And I thought, well, maybe while we've been creating planes and trains and cars, maybe the mermaids have also been inventing things like that. So that's why in the Crocodile Kingdom, there's the Chomp underground subway system that's run by crocodiles, and why we have clam cars, which the Oysterdale mermaids invented. So if you live in Oysterdale, you also probably have a very fast, speedy clam car that you tear around the oceans in. So we will now go from Oysterdale back through the Crystal Tunnel, back through Swirly Shell, and up to Anchor Rock in the north. So Anchor Rock is different again to the other mermaid cities. It looks very different because, let's see if you can see the kind of houses that they live in. So they live in houses that are sunken ships. So they love to find old sunken ships and then they do them up and make them really cool. And they actually live very close to the most famous mermaid sunken ship, which is the Mary Mary, which is believed to be haunted. So Anchor Rock is a really cool place. And they tend to have, the thing about Anchor Rock is they wear cool accessories. So we'll put on some star glasses here. And they also have, it's quite dark in Anchor Rock, so they all have luminous, brightly coloured hair, which is kind of fun. So I've got my pink hair now. We'll pretend that doesn't, I don't have the other hair. And they also have pet eels that they walk on leads. So that is Anchor Rock, which is very cool. So if you live in Anchor Rock, you probably like living in a sunken ship and you have a pet eel, which is very cool. So that is the north, that's Anchor Rock. So if we swim back down from Anchor Rock through Swirly Shell, we're going to take the very long Crabby Shell Highway. And the Crabby Shell Highway is filled with bubbles and sea lions that honk at you if you crash into them. So we'll take our clam car all the way down the Crabby Shell Highway through the beautiful kelp forest. And then we will come out here. The thing about this route is when you come out of the kelp forest, you can see that there's something there. But when you swim out, it looks like there's nothing ahead of you, but everyone knows that to see Hammerhead Heights, you have to look down to see it, because Hammerhead Heights is in a big canyon, which is really cool. And Hammerhead Heights is arguably one of my favourite mermaid cities, and you can probably guess what there's a lot of in Hammerhead Heights. Now the mermaids tend to have shark tails, which is very cool, but I don't have a shark tail to put on, so I thought just to symbolise Hammerhead Heights, we'll put on the shark head, but it's really difficult to talk out of it, so this is the shark head. And Hammerhead Heights is really cool. The mermaids live in these amazing rock towers and there's sharks everywhere. And it is also home to one of my favourite mermaid restaurants. And it is called Joella's, and it is a restaurant that you get to by swimming into the mouth of a shark. So if you live in Hammerhead Heights, you probably have a very cool shark tail and you love sharks, swimming around with lots of sharks, and you probably like going to Joella's, the restaurant in a shark's mouth, for chomp chops. And then finally, we will leave Hammerhead Heights and we're going to go all the way over to Lobster Time. And Lobster Town is the most modern of the mermaid cities, you can see here, and you might be able to see there's a little billboard there. So Lobster Town is really famous for Clippy, and Clippy is a cartoon lobster in a dress, and he has an evil arch nemesis called O, who's a pufferfish, and the mermaids love watching Clippy cartoons, and Mimi is especially a big fan of Clippy, and if you can see, she's actually wearing a Clippy t-shirt. So the mermaids in Lobster Town like to sort of also wear cool accessories, and they tend to be lobster themed. So we'll put on this lovely bejeweled lobster hat. And Lobster Town is a very arty city. They like to do paintings on the sides of whales that swim past. And there's also a really cool cafe called the Orange Bucket Cafe that the three mermaids like to go to with their friends. So that is just some of the mermaid places, but like I said, as the books go on, they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and we go to all the different places in the mermaid world. So what I thought would be fun is if we stay in the Hidden Lagoon and we build a new mermaid city for the Hidden Lagoon mermaids. So this is the bit where I want you guys to get out your piece of paper and your pens, and I would like you to do a few things that are crucial for world building. So the first thing is you need to name your city. And when you name your city, you can call it something that, you know, makes sense for the kind of city that you would imagine it to be. So for example, you might really love blobfish. I think blobfish are hilarious. So what you can do to create the name is just call it Blobfish Town or Blobfish City. Blobville, you know, you can play around with the idea. You'll notice that the names of the mermaid cities here, Swirly Shell, so I just thought that sounded sort of traditional and mermaidy and old. Or Oysterdale, I just added dale to the word oyster. Or Anchor Rock, because when you put the anchor down, it often hits a rock, and they like sunken ships, so it makes sense that it would be called something to do with ships. Hammerhead Heights, because they live in these huge rock towers. I imagined it to be a big sort of city feel, full of sharks, so Hammerhead Heights made sense. And Lobster Time, that's just lobster and town smushed together, because I needed it to have a lobster theme because of Clippy, the cartoon lobster. So have a think about what you would like to call your mermaid city. My tip would be, think about if you love a sea creature. So if you love dolphins, maybe you call it Dolphin Bay, or, you know, think about the things that you love. Maybe you love crocodiles and you want to name it after a crocodile. So come up with a name. And then the next thing you need to do is you need to think about what kind of houses the mermaids are going to live in. So I mentioned that the mermaids live in quite different houses depending on what city they're in. So in Hammerhead Heights, they live in these cool rock towers. In Oysterdale, they're in sandcastles. Swirly Shell, it's the very old traditional swirly shell studded buildings. And Anchor Rock is sunken ships. So what kind of houses do the mermaids live in? Maybe they live in a coral reef. You know, what does it look like? Maybe they live in something really crazy, like a treasure chest, and they're miniature mermaids. You know, have a think about where you would like your mermaids to live. So you'll have a name, what kind of houses the mermaids live in. The next thing I want you to do is to give them some entertainment. So in the Hidden Lagoon, they have Clippy, the cartoon lobster I mentioned, who's on Mimi's t-shirt there. But they also have another TV show called Catwalk Prawn, and you can see it on the back here. And Catwalk Prawn is a TV show where they create tiny outfits for prawns and send them down the catwalk. In Bad Mermaids on Thin Ice, in Frostopia, they have a famous cartoon character called Bergwin, who is a half penguin, half hamburger. And they love watching things about Bergwin, and they collect little Bergwin toys. And in the Crocodile Kingdom, they have a detective show called Chops and Slinky about a detective crocodile and his assistant, who is an eel. And Chops and Slinky are really bad at solving crimes. So if you were to create a mermaid TV show for your mermaids, what would it be? And you could invent a cartoon character, or you could maybe think about TV shows that you like. Maybe you like cookery programs, so it could be a mermaid cookery program. Maybe it could be a documentary. So think about that and think about the TV show. What's it called? What's it about? Maybe it's a game show. It's a fun game show that they go on. So give them some form of entertainment. Now, it's very important that your mermaids are entertained. It's also very important that they have somewhere good to eat. So I mentioned Joella's, the restaurant in a shark. So I want you to also create a mermaid restaurant for your mermaids. And you can have so much fun with this. When you're world building, you can, if you're really enjoying building something, say you're really enjoying building the restaurant, you might want to spend all your time on this restaurant. You might want to come up with a menu and all the different kinds of food that they eat. So think about that and build up your mermaid restaurant and maybe come up with a name for it. How you get into the restaurant is in an interesting place. What are the waiters like? Are they mermaids, or are they maybe turtles that serve the food on their backs? You can think about all different ideas for what the mermaid restaurant is going to be. And then finally, I would like you to do one more thing to make your mermaids happy, which is to give them a pet. And my advice for creating a pet is that you can create something that you would love. So when I was little, I always wanted an elephant that was the size of a hamster. I thought that would be really cool. So think about the kind of, if you were a mermaid, what kind of pet would you love? And it can be anything you want. So in Bad Mermaids, Beatty, who's the main character, she has a pet seahorse called Steve, who is the only seahorse on record who can speak. And in book 2, we meet some mercats, which is kind of fun. And then by book 4, because Mary Pebble in book 3, she has a jellyfish assistant called Lady Wriggles. So you can come up with fun names for them. By book 4, we meet a brand new creation, which is a mashup pet of the two, the Hamstar. And this is a Hamstar. It is a half hamster, half starfish. So you can create a whole new creature. So you might want to mess around with size. You might want to come up with maybe a small. This is a little beluga whale. You might want to make it a big creature small so that they can have it as a little pet. You might want to go with something magical like a jellyfish and give it special powers. Or you might want to go with a hamster. And mash up some pets. You know, you could have in book 4, one of the mermaids really wants to invent a shark, which is a half chicken, half shark. So you can go crazy and come up with anything you want, and make sure to give them a good name. So once you've done all of that, once you have your city and you have the places where the mermaids live, and you have the TV show that they watch, and you have the restaurant that they eat in, and you have the pet that they love, you will have created so much story potential as well. Because maybe you might want to write an entire story about the pet that you've created. Or maybe your main character mermaid works at the restaurant but dreams of being on this TV show. Maybe it's a competition show that the mermaid dreams about being on. You'll start, as you're world building, to find things in the world that you love or are interested in. You might love the pet and think, actually, I'm going to write an entire story about the pet. So world building can be really fun, and it's a great way of sparking new story ideas. And you can just play around with it and make it as big as you want it to be. So I really hope that you enjoyed this mermaid world building event, and yes, good luck building your mermaid worlds. Bye.